Official science wants you to believe that when someone dies, they simply cease to exist. That all those strange sensations, impossible coincidences, and signs you notice are just products of your imagination or emotional despair. But Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, dedicated decades of his life to scientifically proving that this materialistic version of reality is completely wrong. The truth they don't want you to know is that death does not exist. There is only a change of state, a transition to another dimension of life. And those who have departed not only continue to exist, but maintain a real and tangible connection with us, constantly sending signs of their presence and unchanged love. Have you ever felt a sudden, unexplained chill? Woken up from a dream so vivid it felt more real than waking life? Experienced coincidences so impossible they defied all logic? Then you've already encountered spiritual communication, perhaps without knowing how to interpret the signs. In this video, I'm going to reveal the 5 types of spiritual manifestations that Kardec documented in his works, and how you can recognize when someone who has passed is trying to communicate with you. Get ready to discover a reality that will completely transform your understanding of life, death, and the eternal love that connects us forever. There are moments in life when the veil between worlds becomes thinner, and those who have passed find subtle yet undeniable ways to manifest their presence among us. Allan Kardec, in his meticulous observations recorded in The Book of Mediums, scientifically documented these phenomena that our rational mind tends to dismiss as coincidence or imagination. When you feel a sudden change in the room's temperature, especially a chill concentrated in a specific area, it's not just ordinary climate variation. Spirits need to manipulate the environment's energy to manifest physically, and this energetic effort causes thermal changes that our bodies immediately perceive. Kardec explained that disembodied spirits possess a perispiritual body that vibrates at frequencies different from dense matter, and when they wish to interact with us, they must lower their energetic vibration, causing the sensations we experience. Objects moving without any apparent cause represent direct manifestations of the spiritual capacity to act upon matter through willpower and perispiritual energy. When a picture falls at the exact moment you think of someone who's passed, when drawers open by themselves or small items show up in unusual places, the spirit is using their mental strength to capture your attention in a way that you cannot dismiss as mere chance. Lights that flicker in unusual patterns, especially when there are no apparent electrical issues, are among the most common forms of spiritual communication. Electrical energy has a natural affinity with perispiritual energy, allowing spirits to interfere with circuits easily. Kardec noted that spirits are particularly skilled at influencing electrical devices because these function with energy similar to that which composes their perispiritual body. Electronic devices that turn on by themselves carry even more specific messages. When a radio plays a meaningful song, when the TV switches to a show you used to watch together, or when a phone plays forgotten music, the spirit is using these devices to trigger shared memories, creating a bridge between worlds through references that make sense only to the two of you. Our rational minds, conditioned by modern materialism, instinctively reject these experiences because they can't be explained within the parameters of official science. Kardec understood that our natural tendency is to seek conventional explanations, even when they fall short of accounting for the full scope of the observed phenomenon. However, we must consider not just the isolated event, but the context, the frequency, and the emotions present at the time of the manifestation. These physical signs are just the first words of a conversation that will evolve through more subtle channels, preparing our awareness for more refined forms of contact that reach directly into the intimate domains of human experience. During sleep, our soul partially frees itself from the limitations of the physical body, allowing our natural mediumship to manifest with greater intensity and clarity. In this expanded state of consciousness, spirits find the most direct and effective channel for communication, taking advantage of the moment when our rational defenses are relaxed and our spiritual perception is naturally heightened. The difference between an ordinary dream and a real visit from the spiritual realm is unmistakable for those who learn to recognize the distinctive signs of such an experience. In regular dreams, images are often fragmented, confusing, mixing everyday elements in illogical and often bizarre ways. In spiritual visits, however, the departed person appears with extraordinary clarity. Their features are perfectly defined, their words are clear and coherent, and the entire experience possesses a quality of reality that surpasses any common dream you've ever had. The deep sense of peace that lingers after awakening from a spiritual visit is another essential distinguishing factor. While disturbing dreams leave us agitated and common dreams are quickly forgotten, an encounter with a departed loved one imprints a lasting serenity on the soul that can last for days or even weeks. This peace is not just emotional, but energetic, as if the spirit's presence had harmonized your internal vibrations, bringing a balance you can't rationally explain, but deeply feel throughout your being. The messages transmitted during these visits have a specificity and relevance that makes sense only to you and your current life situation. The spirit doesn't speak in generalities or empty phrases, but shares precise information, specific advice for your circumstances, or reveals details only they could know. These communications often include practical guidance for problems you are facing, words of comfort in difficult times, or clarifications about questions left unanswered since their departure. Kardec observed that during sleep, our spirit partially detaches from the physical body, remaining connected only by the fluidic cord that preserves physical life. In this state of semi-freedom, our soul temporarily recovers abilities it naturally possesses, but that remain limited while we are awake and focused on material needs. The latent mediumship we all carry manifests spontaneously, allowing us to perceive spiritual realities that are normally veiled by our conscious mental activity. During these experiences, you may receive not only words, but also sensations, emotions, and even knowledge that the spirit transmits directly to your consciousness. Sometimes we wake with a clear understanding of something that was troubling us, without recalling the exact words that were spoken, but carrying the inner certainty that we received valuable guidance. Other times, communication happens through meaningful symbols, scenes that represent future situations, or simply through the loving presence that strengthens us to face everyday challenges. These nightly visits open our perception to even subtler forms of communication that do not depend on sleep, but manifest through seemingly casual synchronicities that begin to permeate our waking lives. The world around us becomes a true book of messages when spirits choose to communicate through the seemingly casual circumstances of daily life. Allan Kardec, with his characteristic wisdom, taught us that there is no such thing as chance in the universe, but rather a law of cause and effect that governs all manifestations of life, including those events our limited understanding classifies as random coincidences. When you're walking down the street, lost in thought about someone who has passed, and suddenly hear the exact song you used to listen to together, playing on a passing car's radio, that's not a meaningless coincidence. The spirit is using environmental circumstances to send a direct message, taking advantage of the perfect synchronization between your receptive mental state and the opportunity the moment provides. This form of communication requires a complex, energetic orchestration, where the spirit subtly influences people and situations around you to create the exact moment of revelation. Significant objects that appear in unlikely places carry emotional and symbolic weight far beyond their physical materiality. When you find an old coin in the pocket of clothes you haven't worn in a long time, when a forgotten photo falls out of a book on a day you're feeling nostalgic, or when you come across a personal belonging of the deceased in a place you're certain you didn't leave it, the spirit is using these items as carriers of shared memories and emotions. Each object becomes a tangible link between the two worlds, holding the history and love that connect you. Communication through other people is one of the most touching and direct forms spirits use to convey their messages. When a stranger approaches and says exactly what you needed to hear, when someone calls at just the right time to offer help with a specific issue, or when a small child spontaneously mentions the name of the departed, the spirit is using these people as unconscious instruments of their communication. These situations occur because spirits can influence the thoughts and impulses of sensitive individuals, guiding them toward actions that result in the delivery of the intended message. Repetitive numerical sequences that begin to appear frequently in your life also represent a specific form of spiritual communication. When you constantly see the same time on the clock, when significant numbers appear on license plates, receipts, or documents, or when important dates repeat in seemingly random ways. The spirit is establishing a personal communication code. Each number carries a specific energetic vibration and may represent important dates, significant ages, or simply a way to confirm their continued presence in your life. The natural environment also becomes a powerful channel for these synchronistic manifestations. Birds that appear at specific moments, flowers that bloom out of season, animals that behave unusually in your presence. All of these phenomena can be signs directed specifically at you. Spirits possess the ability to influence natural forces and living beings, using them as messengers to transmit feelings of love, protection, and guidance. These daily synchronicities prepare your sensitivity to perceive even more subtle manifestations that do not rely on external events, but instead reveal themselves through the inner perceptions that arise directly within your consciousness. Our energetic body, the perispirit that Allan Kardec described with such precision, functions as a natural receptor of the spiritual vibrations that constantly surround us. It is through this subtle body that we sense the presence of those who have passed, long before our rational mind can process or understand what is happening around us. That unexplained feeling of a presence that suddenly arises when you're alone at home, and suddenly feel that you're no longer alone, is a real and legitimate perception of spiritual closeness. Your perispirit is detecting the energy of another being who has approached you with loving and protective intentions. This sensation is not a product of imagination or nervousness, but a natural response of your energetic system when it comes into contact with familiar spiritual vibrations. The spirit does not need to fully materialize for their presence to be perceived, as communication between worlds occurs primarily on the energetic plane. The distinctive scent that appears out of nowhere, especially when it's a fragrance the person used to wear in life, is one of the most direct and emotionally impactful forms of spiritual communication. Spirits can reproduce these scents by manipulating the aromatic particles in the environment, or by directly stimulating our sense of smell through energetic impressions. When such a scent appears at meaningful moments, like birthdays, anniversaries, or times when you need comfort, it is not an illusion of the senses, but a conscious and intentional manifestation by someone wishing to show their nearness and unchanged affection. The sensation that someone touched your shoulder when you are completely alone reveals the ability spirits have to physically interact with us through their perispiritual body. This gentle, comforting touch usually happens during moments of sadness, worry, or when you're facing difficult decisions. The spirit uses condensed energy to produce a real tactile sensation, transmitting through this physical contact all the love and support they wish to offer. This experience leaves behind a feeling of warmth and protection that lingers long after it happens. Sudden changes in a room's energetic atmosphere also indicate spiritual presence. When you feel that the energy of a space has inexplicably changed, becoming denser or lighter, more welcoming or more solemn, your perispirit is reacting to the presence of spiritual energies that have altered the vibration of the environment. These spaces take on a specific emotional quality that reflects the spiritual state and intentions of the being manifesting. Kardec teaches us to trust these perceptions because they represent natural faculties of the human being, faculties that have been dulled by the excessive materialism of modern society. Our spiritual intuition is a perception tool just as valid as our 5 physical senses, and often more reliable in detecting realities that transcend the material world. When we learn to value and interpret these sensations, we develop a constant and natural communication with those who remain with us in spirit. These intimate perceptions prepare our soul to recognize the special moments when a spirit is preparing for an important transition in their evolutionary journey. There is a sacred moment in every spirit's journey when they must say a final goodbye in order to continue their spiritual evolution. Allan Kardec teaches us that this transition represents a natural and necessary process, where the disembodied spirit gradually frees itself from the earthly ties that still connect it to the physical world. Recognizing the signs of this final farewell is essential in allowing our loved one to move forward in peace, free from the impediments that overly attached emotions can create. Spiritual communication signs often intensify in the period leading up to this final departure. It's as if the spirit concentrates all its available energy to establish one last deep and meaningful contact with us. Physical manifestations become more frequent and evident. Dreams become extraordinarily vivid. Synchronicities multiply to a degree that becomes almost impossible to ignore. This intensification happens because the spirit wants to convey all remaining important messages, offering final guidance, demonstrations of love, and words of comfort that will remain with us as a lasting spiritual treasure. After this period of intense communication, the signs gradually begin to fade. Not abruptly, but following a natural pattern of gentle, progressive withdrawal. Manifestations become more spaced out and less obvious, as if the spirit is slowly distancing itself from our earthly perception. This decrease is not a sign of abandonment or forgetfulness, but rather the natural evolution of the separation process that allows the spirit to direct its attention and energy towards the experiences and learning that await it in higher spiritual realms. The deep sense of peace that gradually replaces the anguish of longing is one of the clearest indicators that this transition is happening harmoniously. Where once there was sharp pain from physical absence, an inexplicable serenity now emerges. An inner understanding that the loved one is well and continuing on their rightful spiritual path. This peace does not eliminate love or memories, but transforms the quality of those feelings, making them less dependent on constant contact and more rooted in the certainty of a future reunion. Farewell dreams have very specific characteristics that distinguish them from ordinary spiritual visits. In these final experiences, the person appears radiant, bathed in light, demonstrating a happiness and freedom that transcends any state they ever experienced during earthly life. Their words carry a tone of closure, of cycle completion, often expressing gratitude for all the love received and offering reassurance that they will always remain connected to us through the eternal love that unites us, even if direct manifestations become less frequent. Kardec explains that this process of detachment is aligned with the divine laws that govern spiritual evolution. Each soul has its own rhythm and specific needs for growth, and there comes a time when remaining overly connected to earthly vibrations can hinder spiritual progress. Allowing this transition with love and understanding is a true act of spiritual generosity, showing that our love is mature enough to desire the evolutionary well-being of our loved one, even when that means accepting a different form of connection. If this content touched your heart and expanded your understanding of life after death, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps spread this message to others who also need comfort and clarity. And if you want to keep receiving content like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new revelations about the spiritual world. Together, let's keep alive this connection of love that transcends the limits of matter.